All right, so we're going to start out today. We're going to finish up the first standard that we're looking at, which is solving linear equations. And then we're going to introduce polynomials. But the first part of this video is focusing on linear equations. Learning intention, I will learn to effectively analyze and use y equals mx plus b. This is an equation right here, all right? And this is considered the linear equation format, y equals mx plus b, and I'll learn how to solve polynomials. I will be successful when I can use a graph to find the slope, understand the value of the y-intercept, use points on a graph to write an equation, and understand the difference between a monomial or polynomial, and then successfully add polynomials together. All right, but the first part we're going to focus on is when it comes to the linear equation. And remember, from previous grades, we identified slope as constant of proportionality. We identified slope as rate. We identified slope as m. So with this, m in our equation right here represents the slope. So let me pull up my whiteboard real quick. Share. So the first thing we're going to look at is the equation that I mentioned, which is y equals mx plus b. All right, that's our linear equation format. And we already know what y represents. A lot of times we'll give you points, right? And we'll say the points on the graph are 3 and 4. So we already know that the 3 is the x value and the 4 is the y value. Now, if I'm going to identify this right here is a slope, and then the b represents the y-intercept. All right, and remember the y-intercept is the value in which the line crosses the y-line. The equation crosses the y-line. For example, let's try and make this very simple. I have a graph, y-axis, x-axis, and this is my line right here, my linear line. Remember, we're talking about linear equations. So linear equations are generally straight lines. They are straight lines. And let's say this point right here is 4. All right. So that point, my y-intercept, let's make this 5 actually. My y-intercept would be 5. So in this equation, instead of having b, it would have said plus 5. And keep in mind, this can change. It could be in the negative portion of the y-axis, all right? So if that's in the negative portion, then this becomes negative 5, all right? Just keep that in mind. The y-intercept is where the graph or function crosses the y-axis, all right? So if I'm going to write this in point format, then this would be 0, 5. So I could say to you the y-intercept is 0, 5, because the x value is always going to be 0 for the y-intercept, and the y value is always going to be 5, because that's where it crosses. All right. So since we've mentioned that part, that's just the basis of a linear equation. All right. Y equals mx plus b, and generally all we're trying to find is the slope and the y-intercept. We generally can pick up an x and y value from the graph. And since this equation is representing this graph, the x and y value that I choose could be anywhere on the graph. It just has to be on the line. For example, I could pick up the x and y value from here. I could pick it up from here. As long as it's on the line, then it goes with this equation. What we're trying to find is m and b, all right? The slope and the y-intercept. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is coming up with the y equals mx plus b equation from a graph. All right, so let me get this part, and I'm going to say deriving deriving y equals mx plus b from a graph. So you are given the graph and they're asking you to, what's the equation for this graph? So I'm going to come up with a graph right now. Very simple graph, really. Y, x, I'm going to just throw some values in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The origin is 0. Always remember that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let me just put a graph on here. I'm going to say this right here is, oh, no, I don't like that. Let's say it goes through this point. Ooh, come on, go through it, go through it. Okay, there it is. Woo! So I have that line, and I'm being asked to come up with the graph, the equation from this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how, if we have graph paper, then it kind of matches up. But I'm going to show you how to make this a little bit easier. So we're going to say these 2 points match up. We're going to say that's the graph paper. Up 3 over was 6. And I think I'm going to redraw my, because I want these right here to match up. So let's do erase, erase, erase. And then let's do that again with green. So I want that point. So in reality, go. Okay, we're going to say it went through that line. So this is my graph, right? So now they're asking me to come up with y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to state it and put it out there that m is equal to y over x. Remember when we're doing unit rates, we always did right over left. This is the y over x, all right? Y over x, that's where that's coming from. So in order to find m, I need to find how much y does it go up before it goes over to 1x or 2 x's. That's what I'm trying to find. So if I go to my origin, it went up 1, 2, 3 before it went to the first x. And then it went up another 3. Then it goes to the second x. A lot of people will identify this or call this rise over run. So the rise divided by the run. So how much did it go up before it went across? It went up 3 slots and then over 1. All right. So with this case, my m would be 3 over 1. All right. And keep in mind, the points have to also be on my line. If the points are not on my line, then it doesn't work. My points have to be on the line. I could also look at this and tell what my B is. Could someone put in the chat what my B is? I remember B is the Y-intercept, all right? Yes, that is correct. My B would be 2 because the line goes through 2. Remember the line, wherever the line goes through the Y-intercept, that's my B, because B is the Y-intercept. All right, B is my Y-intercept. And then the slope is my rise over run. So to find the slope, I go up and then over. I see where they connect. All right. And then for my B, I go and see where it intersects the y-axis. So my equation would be y equals m is 3, and then I put x back, and then b is 2 plus 2. And that's how you write your equation. You find the slope, which is rise over run. You find b, which is generally easy. If the line went through 5, then this would be plus 5. If the line went through 0, then it would be plus 0. It just all depends on where. So let's look at this question right here, and we're trying to write the equation for it. See if I'm going to be able to write on this. No, but we already talked about it. We're looking at number 3. So we already talked about it, and we know that the y-intercept is 2. So we know that b is equal to 2. Now we need to find the slope. All right, so m is equal to what? I'm going to try and go from this point right here where you see my mouse up to 2, because remember, it's rise over run. I'm not going to take any random point that's not on the crossing of the grid, because then it gets too hard. So here I go up and then over 1. So it says go 1, 2, 3, and then over 1. So it's 3, which is the rise, over 1. We see from here, look at where my mouse is at. And I'm taking the line, the part of the line where it goes an across part of the grid. All right. I'm not going to take a random spot inside here, because how am I going to track that? All right. I have to get a part that's here that have a cross there as well. Go from here to wherever the next one is. So I have to go up 3, 1, 2, 3 grids and go over 1 to get 3 over 1. So my m is equal to 3 over 1. Yes, m is equal to 3 over 1. Let me put that in the chat real quick. So then my equation is y equals 3x plus 2. I'm getting a question saying always. Could you just explain what you mean by always? All right, so for the rest of this recording, let's do another question real quick, because it's somewhat similar to this, all right? So what if the graph, this graph, and I'm gonna put it right here so that we don't lose the image of this graph that's on this side. So if I have this graph and it goes this way, do you realize that's going a different direction than this graph? That one is going this way and this one is going this way, all right? And let's say the y-intercept is 6. So I know that the goal is to fill out this equation, y equals mx plus b, right? So I already know that my y-intercept is 6, and say this right here was 4, 2. I'm gonna say this was 1, cool. So, you know, normally you count up, you see what you want the rise over the run. With this, because it's going the opposite direction, we're doing the same thing, but it's negative. So graphs that are similar to this first one right here, the slope is always positive. And graphs where it's going down like that one, then it's negative. All right, so I need to figure out it goes down 4 because before it goes over 1. Down 4 before it goes over 1. This one, it goes down 2 and then goes over 2. I think I messed this up. This right here is supposed to be, oh, 1 over 4, 2. Let's erase this part. down 4 over 1. For a minute, real quick. So let's see, the points are, all right, so I wrote a different question on here because I got a little bit too excited. So it's the same thing though. The graph, it goes down. So we already know that the b is going to be equal to 4, right? And then I need to figure out how much does it go down before it gets to the point. All right, so this point right here, we're going to say this graph goes through this point. Let me draw it so that it kind of goes through it. There it is. Graphs are supposed to look better than this, okay? So don't follow my lead on this. So before it gets to the next point, it went down 3. It went from 4 to 1. So you know you do rise over run, it's the same thing. But since I'm going down, it's gonna have to be -3. So I go down 3, and then I went over 2. So the only thing really changes with the negative is your rise. If you're going up, like with this one, I was going up, all right? So it became +3 over 1. With this one, I'm going down. So it became -3 over 2. So my equation is y equals -3 over 2x plus 4. All right? And that's how you write an equation from a graph. At least I feel you recording. I just want us to think about this a little bit. What if I gave you the graph, the points, and I said, here's the equation, plot the graph. So you know we're already going to start at 2, so I'd put a point at 2, and then I know it goes up 3 and over 1. I don't need to put 3 over 1 because 3 over 1 is 3. Then I know it goes up 3 and then over 1. All right? That's how you could plot a graph from an equation or get an equation from a graph. Same with this one. I know that the y-intercept is 4, so I start at 4, and then it goes 3. Yes. So you could get it both ways. You could get the equation, you could get the graph. You could say, here's the equation. I start at 4, it goes down 3. I know it's down because it's a -3. Down goes down 3 and over 2. Then that's another point. Then I could go down 3 again, over 2. All right, so I just continuously going down 3 over 2, down 3 over 2. All right, that is, you could go either way. I think on the worksheet there's something, there's one for both ways.